If you love driving a mob of peasants to the point of starvation, then proceeding to execute them after they peacefully protest outside your hall because they want paying to feed their families, then do I have the game for you. You may think this is footage of modern day Swansea, but do not be fooled, because this is an experience you can enjoy without ever having to set foot in Wales.
Just up the road from Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll, go get a Quindrobble, Llantysilio, go.
Norland is a game where you feed your people nothing but turnips, flour and moonshine for a month and then get surprised when they revolt and burn your city to the ground. You may think this is a simple Rimworld clone with a church and rampant homeless men running around with swords. However, you would be sorely mistaken. In Norland, you only control nobles.
The fat pig, was he eating?
Who must keep the peasants under an iron fist before they inevitably run away or kill your nobles in their sleep. The game starts with you picking your royal family, which could end badly if you don't take your time with it.
But the people are retarded.
I settled for 4 nobles, 3 brothers and a wife, one of whom was a religious gambling addict. I chose him specifically because this winner's mentality is exactly what I need to survive this medieval plague-ridden hellscape.
Let's start the game. Oh yeah! So when does Henry of Scalets come in?
Straight away, I got into building a haven. This place would be my magnum opus. Emperor Augustus famously once said, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it one of marble." I really feel like I'll be saying something along those lines by the end of this video when talking about Gorno. I started my magnificent refurbishment of this shithole by spending a majority of my budget on roads that my people do not even need. Norland is the sort of game where you just have to sit back and watch rather than interacting too much. Did I ever tell you to stop rowing? Peasants are often doing funny things in the game like kidnapping each other.
Holy shit, what?
Or injecting copious amounts of heroin in the local state-funded drug den that I voluntarily built. What can I say? I learned from the best. But it's not just drugged up peasants that you'll be watching. Much like in medieval Europe, lords will invite themselves into your town with secret intent and just sort of stay there. Like this king who came to my settlement with the intention of improving relations, just to get continuously ridiculed by my king. I'm not sure why he stayed so long, but I have a feeling it was either as a punishment, self-inflicted harm, or early onset dementia. Needless to say, I don't think Drelikos will be coming back for a second visit, unless it was, you know, dementia. At this point, however, I have no idea that my warm hospitality would eventually be spat into my face and ultimately would result in my demise. While the village was growing as well as any plague-ridden medieval village could, there were a few issues on the border, and I was about to make my first major mistake. Down the road there was a slightly less shithole backwater named LrdHsy. And guess who owns this place? You guessed it. Now, he wasn't thrilled with me after my king called him mean names in front of 38 illiterate peasants, but he still asked for help as there was an impending invasion on his capital, and if he was attacked, he would be royally fucked. I obliged, partly out of guilt, but mostly to avoid a powerful enemy on my border. Believe it or not, my rabble of untrained warriors, who would fare better as peaceful protesters, managed to avoid the fight by scaring off the invaders. Because of this, LrdHsy said, "Hey, you know when your king ridiculed us and embarrassed our king? Well, yeah, don't worry about that because we're best friends now and nothing is ever gonna happen between us, so don't even trip. Dog." So, with that, Stepanebo headed back north to our utopia, stopping on the way to peacefully enforce a new citizen into our colony. And I'm sure this citizen was more than pleased when they got here, as we just had a prophecy that a horrendous crop harvest was upcoming. Now remember that lovely shitville that I actively went out of my way to protect a couple of minutes ago? Yeah? And just double checking that you remember I went out of my way to protect them. And you might maybe assume that seeing as I went out of my way to protect them, they might also remember that fact, and not send their sodomite wife to ram 6.5 kilograms of wood and iron into my king's cranium, then proceeding to do the same thing to my king's wife, swiftly exiting the premises after. You might assume that. Unfortunately, you'd be sorely mistaken because, funnily enough, that's exactly what happened next. It's fair to say that my king was fairly irked by this encounter, and so was his brother, Stepanebo, who had just returned from his entirely legitimate citizen recruitment scheme he had been carrying out. In fact, he was so annoyed that he decided to up and leave straight away to challenge Philoma, i.e. the sodomite wife, to a duel. I don't know how this happened, but somehow they both ended up dying. Needless to say, relations between us and LrdHsy had been soured. A neutral may say at this point, listen, I know you guys have just lost a noble each, and you really want to kill each other, but maybe you could just, I don't know, call it quits? Gorno just set fire to LrdHsy's settlement. Oh, fuck. Now, at this point, I hadn't fully clocked that both nobles had died, and so I was under the impression that we were at a kind of noble deficit. The only logical thing to do seemed to be torching the village of Silverkeep, a peaceful town under the protection of LrdHsy. Okay, Gorno, that was really uncool. You just killed innocent people. But now that that's out of your system, are you willing to consider a peace treaty? Sorry to interrupt again, guys, but Drelikos has just been murdered in his sleep. Are you fucking joking? Needless to say, I received a slightly less than pleased message from the new king of LrdHsy. But for now, I decided to ignore all that because there are a few new problems plaguing my lovely village. For some reason, many of my peasants had recently decided that they would fare better as bandits than law-abiding citizens. My king, as I'm sure you will remember, was recently pummeled in the jaw with a shield, so he wasn't in the best of moods. Like most people, he decided to wind down and relax to try take his head off things. Well, maybe not his head, because he was removing the heads of all the vagrants plaguing the city, consequently attempting to behead 18% of his kingdom. I'm not sure if he suffered a concussion, but he appears to have semi-permanent brain damage. With the amount that we had provoked our neighbour, it was only a matter of time before they responded by sending 14 men cranked up on meth and heroin to destroy my lovely village. Of course, we had to respond. So I took 6 peasants unlucky enough to be in my proximity at the time to go defend the village. I fancied my chances as with the village garrison, I had 14 men, so the odds were 50-50. However, my neighbour decided to summon 4 more junkies into existence. With no way to leave the village, I could do nothing but wait.
Oh my god, those are all archers. That's not good. Kill them, boys! They can do it. They can do it. No!
And with that, not only had I lost Stepanebo, but also my king and his gambling addict brother with the ransom asking price of 800 gold each. To try raise funds for their release, I sent the king's wife to relieve some wealth from my neighbours. This is commonly referred to as theft, but I think for the situation I'm in, it's excusable. Unfortunately, it happened to be a huge mistake, as not long after, another nail was enthusiastically slammed into the coffin. After the mass beheadings and slight issue of starvation, my peasants had been leaving the settlement to form a sizable bandit camp, and now they seem to believe it was the perfect time to torch my entire fucking village. Crops, houses, people, and temples were put to the torch. Funnily enough, they were generous enough not to take anything, leading me to believe this was entirely out of spite and just to shit on me while I was already down. Now, to the naked eye, this place may look uninhabitable with the mass homelessness, rampant criminals, lack of nobles, and half the village turned to ash, but it wasn't enough to put off Cetera, a random wandering noble, from joining the team. I don't know if she's mentally stable. Chudnitsa, the king's wife, returned not in the best mood, as not only had she not managed to get enough money for the release of the gambling addict and our king, but the peaceful village she had left in the care of Zhivova, who had been graciously relieved of her head in the excursion, was now a pile of rubble and starving homeless people. On top of this, the bandit camp seemed to have doubled in size.
I'll say 15! Oh, shit.
Clearly, the united goal of ramming the inevitable truth that my village was in fact fucked up my arse was the most motivating goal in the entire country. Fantastic. To help Chudnitsa and Setera bond, I decided to send them on a small hunting trip. While in medieval times, hunting was a royal pastime and considered a luxury, here in Gorno, it's a necessity, as more and more villagers keep going missing to flesh wolf attacks. What I did not know was that this seemingly low-risk wolf hunt would turn very far south when Chudnitsa decided to instantly throw down her arms and plead for the wolf's mercy.
Sake!
Setera, understandably rather discouraged by this act of bravery, was swiftly mauled by the wolf. What Chudnitsa failed to realise was that wolves can't read, and therefore weren't particularly well versed in the rules of warfare. I get this impression because he swiftly tore my surrendering noble's torso in half before leaving and proceeding with his day. And with that, our village finally came to the end of its miserable existence. The final nail had been firmly drilled into my arse, and whatever twisted god that caused these peasants to undergo such a traumatic experience was now probably laughing and sipping wine. Norland is hilarious. I was hoping for an unbelievable redemption arc and not for my nobles to be aggressively mauled by a dog, but hey, I guess that's life. At least I got my first trophy in the game. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!